We are responding to President Obama's televised speech regarding the terror attacks in San Bernardino, the peaceful religion of Islam, and the need for more gun control. And I have to at least ask the question about demons. Stop, Randall, stop. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
President Obama, who is named after the grandson of Muhammad, the false prophet of Islam. He, again, has done a televised speech telling us to embrace our Islamic friends around the world, even though Islam says for Muslims, don't take Christians and Jews for your friends. Anyway, Obama is once again lying, telling us that we need to accept Islam and Muslims and that the best of our nature. I'm going to go over his speech in detail in the next night or two, but I wanted to respond directly with some intelligent content. And remember, he's named after the grandson of Muhammad, Barack Hussein Obama. Hussein was supposed to be one of the caliphs, one of the successors of Muhammad, either him or his brother Hassan. We're dealing with somebody who, in Obama, who is sympathetic to Islam, somebody who said that the call to prayer is one of the most beautiful things he's ever heard. If you've ever been in Jerusalem, any number of Muslim nations, the call to prayer is annoying. It's actually repulsive on the ear. It's repulsive. Go ahead and just do a search to see for yourself. There's something wrong with this man. There's something diabolical about our president. And those who have eyes to see are starting to see it, but many of our brothers and sisters in America right now are just so seduced and so asleep because of bread and circuses. Well, it's to people like us that do shows like this, that do blogs, that write letters to the editor, that write columns. It's to us to try and shake people and wake them up. Obama has the gall to go on TV and to say what we need is more gun control. Every study shows that as private ownership of guns has gone up, murders have gone down. That's the statistical reality. Gun ownership goes up, murders go down. And the tightest gun laws in the country, some of them are in Chicago, which is a battle zone of people getting murdered with really great gun control. Let's come back to the media responding to the San Bernardino with aping questions, aping one another. How does one self-radicalize? How does one of these Muslims self-radicalize? No, we've got to find a contact. Maybe they traveled and were trained by ISIS. No, Alton Knowlton cut off the head of that woman. He didn't go of Colleen. He didn't go to get trained. To self-radicalize, a Muslim only has to read what Muhammad and his companions did and then imitate them. He just has to believe that he'll go to paradise, get 72 virgins, and then start killing. But many law enforcement won't look at Muhammad's practices and his promises and his example as a motive for terror. Why? Because they don't believe the promises. They wouldn't kill others to get themselves to heaven. So they don't believe anyone else would either. So they look for economic factors, workplace tension. Even when those don't exist, they ignore the obvious. Because to say that Muhammad's words motivate terrorism is to concede that violence is inherent in Islam. And that's the truth. Terrorism is not a virus in Islam. It's part of the very fiber of Islam. If law enforcement want to stop terrorist attacks before they happen, maybe rather than doing metadata gathering on every American in the country, they could monitor the Muslims who are spending a lot of time reading and studying the passages of the Quran and the Hadith and the biographies of Muhammad that focus on Muhammad's call to commit acts of terror, that focus on Muhammad's call for killing and dying and being rewarded with paradise. Then they'll find a motive right there in front of them. They don't need to look any further. If you want to see a motive, all right, why does somebody go to the altar and become a follower of Jesus Christ? Because he's the way, the truth, and the life. He is the true Son of God, and because they want to be forgiven of their sins. And so people look at Christians who have a radical conversion. They say, what happened to them? Were they in economic stress? Were they having trouble in their marriage? Well, sometimes, but at the end of the day, they convert so that they can be forgiven for their sins. Guess what? Muhammad promised his followers, start killing people, die in battle, and when the first drop of your blood is spilt, you are forgiven of your sins. There's your motive. Friend, we are in the middle of producing a 14-part epic television series called What Would Muhammad Do?, explaining Islam and ISIS to the West. I have a master's degree in international terrorism, and I have studied ancient Islamic texts for over a decade. And we are going to do a very paced and a very scholarly look at Muhammad's life and see the connection of his life to today's headlines. Well, we need your help on 3 levels. 1, we need help with some security measures. 2, we need help with some gear for the studio. And 3, we need help with some computers. I'm inviting you to go to the GoFundMe site that you see on the screen and watch the pilot for episode 1. You'll get a feel for what it's going to be, and I promise you, you're going to be excited. You'll be challenged, and you're going to want your friends to see it. And then after you've seen it, give what you can to help us with this project. Thank you. Friend, we need to envision a world without the threat of Islamic terrorism. A world without Sharia law anywhere. A world without the Saudis funding Islamic terrorism. Without Muslim nations moving toward nuclear weapons. A world without the scourge of Islam. Some might ask, how could this violent religion ever be done away with? There is precedence. Think about it. The ancient pagan religions of Greece and Rome were similar in form to Islam. They were the official religions of the state. Citizens were required to believe in those false gods. Apostasy was a crime punishable by death. Denying the Greek gods cost Socrates his life. Romans who refused to declare that Caesar was God and burn incense to him were executed. In similar form, in an Islamic state, Islam is the official religion of the state. Citizens are required to believe in Muhammad or submit to Sharia law. Apostasy, or denying that Muhammad is the prophet of God, is a crime punishable by death. Today, Delphi and the Forum, once the centers of the false, oppressive religions of Greece and Rome, now lie in ruins. No one fears those false gods. No one burns incense to Caesar. No one worships Saturn or Nike. We name our cars, our sneakers, our dogs after those false gods. And it can happen again with the oppressive religion of Islam. The means to that end will be to break the sword of Muhammad and Islam. One nation at a time, the apostasy laws must be dismantled. Sharia law must be destroyed from the face of the earth. As the Muslim Brotherhood theologian Qaradawi said, he stated, Islam would have died in the first century without the sword of the apostasy laws. That's what he said. Islam would have died with Muhammad without the apostasy laws, the sword. Well, the end of this oppression can be hastened by the abolition of those apostasy laws. Islam was born by the sword. It converted people with the sword. It kept people enslaved and faithful Muslims by the sword. It lives by the sword. And Jesus said, that which lives by the sword will die by the sword. We must see and declare that Islam, as founded by Muhammad and his successors and practiced in Saudi Arabia, in Pakistan, Yemen, in Egypt, in Iran, and practiced by ISIS and Al-Qaeda, that Islam is at war with basic fundamental human rights. Islam is at war with freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the freedom of the press, the freedom of association, the freedom to criticize the government. How Obama cannot see this shows malice and deceit. Look at Pakistan, Afghanistan. Look at Saudi Arabia. Look at Egypt. There's no freedom of press there. There's no freedom of religion there. Did you know under Sharia law you cannot build a new church? You cannot ring a church bell because it speaks of the resurrection of Jesus. Under Islamic law, they are literally not allowed to build a new church. They are literally not allowed to publicly read the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is a crime. How dare he say that we are not at war, that we are not in a clash of civilizations. That is an oppressive antichrist civilization, and we better believe that it's at war with us. Just look at the Christians, okay? The threat is not Islamic extremism. The threat is Islam. Muslim terrorists have not hijacked Islam. They are following the example left by Muhammad. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas referred to John Locke twice in his dissent in the Obergefell decision. John Locke is referred to as the philosopher of American liberty. He was a genius, and he not only believed in natural law, but he believed in revealed law, the Word of God, the law of God. And he is one of the two most influential philosophers on the founders of this republic. We are offering you this book, and I'm going to give you my book as well, The Sword. The Sword, the subtitle is The Blessing of Righteous Government and the Overthrow of Tyrants. It looks at what is the legitimate purpose of government and when is it our right to overthrow government like they did with the Declaration of Independence. We will send you these two books if you simply pay for the shipping and handling, $8, and then give whatever else you want. And by the way, the $8 doesn't cover our cost, but if that's all you can afford, we'll send them to you for the $8. God bless you. Here's something that I learned. When people discuss the truth about Muhammad and Islam, and I mean the truth as laid out for us in the historic, sacred books of Islam. You know that Muhammad had sex slaves, his own sex slaves. That Muhammad oversaw the distribution and rape of hundreds of women. That Muhammad ordered the decapitation of hundreds of boys, teenage boys, and old men and middle-aged men, non-combatants. Okay, when we discuss the truth about Islam and Muhammad, those who are blinded, willfully blind, and enslaved by political correctness will say, well, you're bigots, you're xenophobes, you're afraid of things that are different than you are. You're Islamophobes. They'll do everything they can to mock us, to marginalize us, rather than look at the historic facts, just to read the texts. I mean, I'm assuming that these liars and deceivers and these politically correct fools can read. Now, that might be a stupid presumption on my part, but if they can read, all they have to do is pick up, say, The Life of Muhammad by Ibn Ishaq, and then they'll say that what we're saying is true, and that Muslims don't run from this, and they're not ashamed of it. They embrace it. They imitate it. Contrary to what Obama said, ISIS does represent Islam. Okay? Now, Winston Churchill, let's go to Winston Churchill for a minute. When Churchill was in Parliament as a backbencher, not a person with big power in the 1930s, he was accurately warning of the danger that Adolf Hitler posed to all of Europe, okay? He was saying Hitler's going to plunge us all into war. And the English press, guess what they did? They mocked him. They vilified Churchill, not Hitler. They vilified Churchill. They called him a fearmonger, a warmonger, and they praised Hitler. The BBC, this is almost funny if it wasn't so tragic. The BBC actually banned Churchill, the British Broadcasting Company. It banned Churchill from the airwaves for a significant season because of his criticism of Hitler and the Nazis. But Churchill was right. And the politically correct appeasers, the fools, were wrong. And the English people ultimately chose Churchill to lead the war because he had told them the truth when the truth was unpopular. He did not have blood on his hands. The greatest speech that Churchill made was not, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, sweat, and tears." Anybody could have given that speech. That was because they were at war and someone had to unite them. No, the greatest speech he gave was when Chamberlain came back after meeting with Hitler and said, "We have peace in our times." And Churchill got up and said, "Now war is certain." Churchill told the truth when the truth was unpopular. And the stakes are too high today for us to cower before the foolish who fancy themselves wise. You know, George Stephanopoulos and company. Have you ever watched him interview Hillary? He's got notes in front of him. Have you ever seen it? Once in a while, they'll do the two-camera shoot. He's got notes, and he'll throw a softball to her, and then he'll look down, and when she's answering, he'll be nodding like, okay, she's getting this line right. It's embarrassing. Stephanopoulos is an embarrassment to true journalism. He's a hack. Let me tell you something. A friend of mine, a former CIA, told me, Randall, he said, we have the capacity to destroy every Muslim terrorist group in the world. To bring down every Muslim terrorist government in the world. The problem is not with our capability. The problem is the 6 inches between our ears. We don't understand the threat we're facing, and therefore we do not possess the will to fight and win. It's just like Chamberlain and the British leadership in the 1930s. They didn't understand what they were facing with Hitler. Churchill did. And friends, we've got to change what's going on today. In our communities, we need to be vigilant regarding suspicious behavior by Muslims. Yes, let me say this, okay? We need to profile. Anyone who says, well, Christians could also commit a terrorist act, well, they're correct. That's right. But that's not the point. Nowhere in the New Testament do we see Christ's disciples terrorizing people to convert them. Nowhere do we see Jesus, God forgive me for even saying this, nowhere do we see our Lord Jesus Christ ordering his disciples to murder unbelievers and make sex slaves out of their widows and their daughters. But we do see Muhammad ordering the decapitation of thousands, distributing sex slaves, owning his own sex slaves, killing with his own hand. Okay? Jesus died to start Christianity. Muhammad killed to start Islam. And the ideology and religion of Muhammad is the ongoing threat in this life. So yes, we need to profile. Because the closer a Muslim draws to Muhammad's example, the greater the chance that he will act out Muhammad's example with acts of terror. Friend, this TV show represents a mission. It's to be a voice of resistance to the evil in the land, but also to inspire people like you to take a stand at any level that you might be able to equip you, to inspire you, to challenge you, to give you the rhetorical ammunition that you need. But we still have to pay bills. This program, as you know if you're a regular viewer, we don't spend a lot of time raising money. We don't spend a lot of time saying, oh, you need to buy this and we're going to... No, we're bringing you a message, but we still have bills that we need to pay. I'm asking you, if you have been blessed by this show, to please go to our website or send a check to the address you see on the screen or call the phone number that you see on the screen and use your credit card and to give $50 or $100 or $500 just to help us meet our normal expenses. And we'll keep bringing you this hard-hitting show. So what do we do? Now we know that this was an Islamic terrorist attack in San Bernardino. And even though the Obama administration won't admit it, the Fort Hood attack was an act of Islamic terrorism. The Chattanooga shootings were an act of Islamic terrorism. The decapitation of that poor woman in Oklahoma was an act of Islamic terrorism. The brothers of the Boston bombers, that was an act of Islamic terrorism. The attack with the axe in New York City on police was an act of Islamic terrorism. We've got Islamic terrorist attacks happening all around us because they are being motivated by Muhammad. That makes them Islamic terrorist attacks. Now, some people say, what do we do? Well, there's a wide range of things that we can do and that we should do. All right, I'll at least throw them out for you. But the most important thing I think that we could do is to start to study Islam. I mean, study Muhammad's life. Read Ibn Ishaq's work. Let Obama's life, let Muhammad's life speak for itself. Okay? Let it speak for itself. And then we need to have the courage to speak up for our Christian brothers and sisters around the world that are being oppressed. And we need to have the courage here in America to say the truth and to not be browbeaten by the politically correct into silence or to shame. People who were neighbors of these two Muslim murderers said that they saw suspicious things happening and they were afraid to call it in because they didn't want to be accused of being bigots or being, of profiling. Oh, what a wicked crime for you to profile. God save us. One of the things that we should do as soon as possible is we need to have as many cartoon contests. We need to have people that speak the truth about Muhammad, whether it's in a cartoon or just have a national Meet Muhammad Day. Billy Bob, that's what we need. There's our activism from the show. Meet Muhammad Day. Do you like that, Bobby Sue? Meet Muhammad Day, huh? Where we have a public forum where we can do a quick overview of Muhammad's life. And we hand out a little tract that has the exact chapter and verse, not the Quran, forget that. People are doing that all the time. In the Hadith and in the biographies. Meet Muhammad. Did you know that Muhammad, ordered the decapitation of hundreds of people, and then have the stories. Did you know that Muhammad owned sex slaves? Just let the full weight of that sink in. Then the Hadith and the biographies. Did you know that Muhammad ordered the distribution of women to be raped? Okay? Did you know? And this go down the list. Meet Muhammad. Meet Muhammad Day. And then we could even say, and by the way, if any Muslims want to come and tell us that these things are not true, we'd be happy to hear from them. And here's the beauty of all of these hadith and these biography things. You can have a Quranic verse. At the end of him distributing sex slaves, you could have a Quranic verse that says, truly in Allah's apostle, you have an excellent example. You could have a Quranic verse that says, he who obeys the prophet obeys Allah. So when Muhammad ordered the people to be decapitated, and then people obeyed him, when they obeyed Muhammad, they obeyed Allah. Are we running out of time? We're going to do it. I don't know when, but we'll do it. Meet Muhammad Day. Meet Muhammad Day. With Muhammad's words. Nothing but Muhammad's words. We need to say the truth because Islam is an existential threat to Christianity. If you don't think so, look at Constantinople. It's Istanbul today.